What's going on in today's market? Oh, it's a bad time to buy a house, right? Matt Smith here, Matt Smith Real Estate Group, with one of our amazing buyer specialists, Erik Kean, goes by the Viking, right? So Erik and I were just talking, we were talking about some common myths of what's going on in today's market and kind of what we're hearing of people that think, oh, it's a bad time to buy a house, or I need 20% down, or my credit's got to be perfect, or any of these myths that we hear out there. And we just kind of wanted to debunk those to educate the community on what actually buying or selling a home looks like. So Erik, let's start with, if someone comes to you and says, oh, I need 20% down to buy a home, is that accurate?
That is not. We have a lot of really great programs that people can take advantage of, from zero down options, multiple of those, to low down payment options. There are programs that can properly fit everybody's needs, each individual.
Yeah, I like to say it's creative lending, right?
Yeah.
And it's responsible creative lending.
Yeah.
And there are many of our buyers, we open their eyes to this and they get 0% down. A lot of times we can negotiate on their behalf to get the sellers to pay for their closing cost, and they can get into their new home at zero money out of pocket.
I've had that happen numerous times.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a huge myth. It doesn't take, so if you want to buy a $200,000 home, you don't need $40,000 like in the bank to just go put for a down payment. Contact Erik, contact us here at Matt Smith Real Estate Group. We'll help look at your situation and walk you through that process. What are some other myths that you hear?
So, not necessarily myths, but a lot of people, of course, right now are talking about interest rates. They think the sky is falling in the housing market because you do hear a lot of the negatives that come out of mainstream media. Mm-hmm. But, not to get political, but that's a lot of what media feeds off of and what they drive
negative
on.
sells, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for things to get clicks to, so the media is not media
Well,
anymore.
heaven forbid people hear the positives.
Right.
That's not as glamorous from a media perspective.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so when someone is talking to you and concerned with interest rates, and that's rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
Interest rate, that is not a myth. Interest rates have risen, right? They have increased. But we have some creative ways and some great programs that we've created to make sure that we can educate, inform, and give our buyers, put them in a position in order to buy the home of their dreams. So what are some of those things that maybe you work through with some of your clients that are concerned with the interest rates?
So when it comes to the concern with interest rates, I talk to clients about, yes, through the pandemic at its peak, we had historically artificially low interest rates. It didn't make any sense for them to be that low other than to artificially be injected to boost the economy. Whereas now they've crept, back up to 7, sometimes even 8%. But
they're
historically, yes, they have dropped down to the 6s, and historically that is still lower than a majority of the rates have been over the past 50 years.
Yeah, and in addition to that, at this current moment, we have a program we can offer to those buyers too, where that, say it's 6.5%, just say that's what the rates are, you can get 4.5%, a lot of times at no cost to you.
Yep, exactly.
It's one of the amazing programs that we have to offer. Let's talk about the home buyer that, here's some stuff that I've heard is, well, I don't want to buy a house, I want to keep renting because owning a home is expensive. So what are some ways that you've worked with a buyer that thinks owning a home is expensive? They're either going to spend more money, the monthly payment maybe they think is too high, or, well, what about these repairs? What if this goes out in the home? What are some ways to work through some of those myths or concerns?
Well, at its root, it's more expensive rent, where you're getting zero equity.
What's the interest rate on rent?
100%.
Every time,
sometimes even more because of your sanity that you're losing.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's something where when you have a home, as long as you buy right and you work with the right agent, the right company, that's something where you can build equity, ideally over a few years.
Create wealth?
Yes.
Yeah. There's also too, like for that person that's like, well, I've heard, what if the water heater goes out? What if the stove quits working? Or just little piddly things that happen, right? Life happens to all of us, and there's things that happen in a home. We have home warranty programs, right, that we can offer to our clients. And a lot of times we can get the seller to pay for those as well, right? And so we can, or they're very affordable if not, but there's a lot of things that we can do to get creative, to negotiate, to fit that buyer's needs, to debunk those myths and allow them to achieve the dream of homeownership.
And that's especially in this market right now, at this moment, where we do have more ability to negotiate things like that, versus a few months ago where everybody was still in panic and it was, you're going over asking price, you're waiving this, waiving that.
Sure.
And now we have more breathing room.
Yeah, for sure. And sellers, this isn't to say that, hey, we're going to ask you to pay for everything. This is we work to create win-win deals, but a lot of times these are things that keep a buyer from even looking into the real estate market. And I remember some stories, and maybe you have some that you can share, but there's some stories that I've heard from people on our team that people went from homeless to homeowner within a year. People went from, he's rented his entire life and he's a retired age, bought his first home through us because we educated him on what was possible. And he's able to create wealth later in his life and pass it on to his kids. And there's just a lot of stories like that where we debunk these myths that truly do change people's lives.
Well, and I do have one of those where, initially he came into our Rolla office just looking for available rentals. I dig a bit more and come to find out he never thought, this was somebody in his mid-50s, never thought he could have the ability to buy a home. But it's just learning what's going on inside of people's heads, and a lot of it's just educating. Yeah.
And that's a lot of things too that we I don't want to say we struggle with, but it's just the reality is that a lot of times salespeople, quote unquote salespeople, get a bad rap, and people think that those real estate agents are just going to sell me. That's not our goal here, right? Our goal here is to help people, and one of the ways that we can help people is educating them. Here's what I would encourage you to do if you're watching this: if you've ever considered buying a home, reach out to us. We will guide you through this process, and we will tell you if you can, if you can't, if you should, if you shouldn't. Ultimately, it's your decision, but there's a lot of information that we are privy to by doing this every single day that we would love to educate and inform you on so you can make that decision. The American dream is homeownership. We want to help people achieve that.
To add to that, I've become famous on the team for my lengthy phone calls where I love helping people. Yeah. And I'll be on the phone with somebody I've never talked to before and look at my phone and, it's been 45 minutes. Yeah. It's been an hour. People who previously looked at right now, the sky is falling. Yep. By the end of the phone call, they've changed their tune, not because I sold them, but because I just laid out the facts, what the reality is. Yeah, the real news versus the mainstream media news, right? Or what my neighbor Bill said, right? Yeah. If your name's Bill, that wasn't meant at you. But another note I wanted to point out is that while Erik's on the phone making those phone calls, stay out of his way because he is pacing back and forth and wearing his shoes out, I promise you. And depending on how the phone call goes, you might see a patent pending high kick.
Hey, for a short guy, he can high kick for sure. Erik, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the people?
Give me a call. Reach out to me on Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is that I'm even on at this point. I don't even know. Yeah. But just reach out to me. I would love the ability to answer any of your questions and help you.
Yeah, we're just here to be a resource. Real estate is the path of, like I said, it's the American dream of home ownership. It's also a path to create wealth. It's a path to create security for you and your family. And it's a privilege we get to do that every single day here at Matt Smith Real Estate Group. And we just want to help you. Reach out to us and let us sit down with you and see how we can help you in your situation.